Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa and internet world. How you doing on this beautiful Tuesday right here in Tuscaloosa? Big thanks to everybody watching us today, everybody tuning in on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You guys are listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Music, and on Amazon, Apple Podcast, and on Amazon. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Proud partner of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network, with our friends All Things Bama, Katie Wyndham and Austin Hannon, and with our friends Blake Byler and Matthew Gibson and Jacob Pickle doing Blue Collar Unplugged. So go subscribe to our other two Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcasts, as all three of us together make up the Bama Central Broadcasting Network. So we're going to have a fun show today. I appreciate everybody jumping in and joining us on the show today. We are going to catch up with Cannon Claycomb on Thursday. I know we promised to bring you a Cannon Claycomb interview today. Just a quick change of plans for Cannon. We will bring you an interview with the Alabama senior golfer on Thursday. So he's going to join us on Thursday. So we're going to have an episode with you and me right here on Tuesday. Still working to get up with Casey Poe, offensive lineman out of Texas. So hopefully we'll get up with Casey Poe later in the week. But what are we going to do today? We're going to have a fun show. Hopefully we're going to have a fun show today. We will always invite you to jump in and join us on the comments from Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can find us at Joe Gaither 6. Send me your comments, your questions, your queries, and complaints right there to the social media machines. Let's talk about, I got 4 topics. Look, I found out the topic that I was leaving out yesterday. I was like, what in the world? I know there was one topic left over from yesterday that I couldn't get to. If you listened to yesterday's program, if you didn't, you can hear me bumble on like a fool on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, right there on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to watch the show or listen to the show, you can find it right there. So let's start with the topic that I left on the cutting room floor yesterday, and then we'll get into 3 other topics. One kind of developed later in the day. One pertaining to Alabama football later in the week, and then one kind of pertaining to our little brothers down in West Georgia at Auburn. Let's start with Jameson Williams. Yesterday's topic that I was like scrambling around. I knew there was something else to talk about today. Blah, 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 blah. It was Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, if you guys haven't really paid attention to him, Jameson Williams going into his second year with the Detroit Lions, and he is suspended for the first 6 games. He's suspended for the first 6 games of the this coming NFL season due to gambling violations. Now, Jameson Williams, we all remember the year that he was here in Tuscaloosa, was an absolute lightning bolt. Was an absolute, just an incredible home run hitter, wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Drafted early despite his ACL injury. Drafted early by the Detroit Lions, and then missed most of the year last year in recovery, as expected, and had came in and played the last 4 or 5 games of the year. Didn't really make too much of an impact on last year's Detroit Lions team. So a lot of people were expecting Jameson Williams to take a huge leap forward for his year number 2, really his true full rookie season. But Jameson Williams, by all accounts, at Lions camp, is struggling a bit up at Detroit Lions camp. Got himself into a fight with a rookie earlier in the week, and just is by all accounts struggling to catch the football, struggling to be consistent out there with Detroit. And I wonder and worry about Jameson Williams, what he's going to be like for the coming year. So Jameson, look, he's going into year number 2. Obviously, you guys know that I'm a Bears fan, so we don't really pull for the Lions, but I pull for anybody who was wearing the Alabama uniform. And JMO, we want to see him have a good second season. Obviously, the gambling incident. The gambling incident is not something that is very, look, we've talked about gambling on this show before, and we can keep talking about it. I think the NFL has a very big gray area that a lot of players, a lot of NFL personnel people find themselves getting caught in. Look, you guys are partnered with DraftKings NFL. You're partnered with FanDuel. You're partnered with really all these sports betting apps and entities out there in Las Vegas, but you don't want your players involved in it. Understandably so. I definitely understand that, and we want to preserve the integrity of the game. But I think the NFL, as with many sports entities who have partnered with gambling or have seen the sports betting industry provide them a huge financial windfall, you've fallen into some gray areas. And so Jameson Williams becomes just one of many Detroit Lions players who were suspended for a gambling issue. Jameson ended up getting suspended for 6 games. So I believe his technical pit of a crime was he cast a bet. He made a wager in the Detroit Lions facility. So Jameson, he's gone off the field, off the field issues, and now not really assimilating on the field for the Detroit Lions, and just brings him up as kind of wondering what's going to happen with him. Wonder what's going to happen with him going forward. I wonder how he will, the Lions have high expectations this year. The Lions have high expectations, and luckily for Jameson Williams, they've got guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown who are, he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 out there in Detroit. And then you think about the first round draft pick for Detroit this past season, Jahmyr Gibbs coming out and saying that he spent a lot more time playing wide receiver, lining up in the slot, lining up in wide receiver positions than he ever did here at the Capstone here at Alabama. So Jameson, look, I think Jameson Williams, you get him on the field, you put him on the field next to Jahmyr Gibbs in week number 7, and you have Jared Goff out there. Then look, that Detroit offense has all kinds of potential to be very, very good. Has all kinds of potential to be incredible. But Jameson, as much as I'm not pulling for you or pulling for the Lions to have success, I do want all my Bama guys to end up, playing well, making all pros, cashing in lots of checks, and ended up having a long career. So Jameson, we're pulling for you to get your career back on track, to get your life, not your life, but get your career on track on the field. Obviously, you're gonna have 6 more games to rehab, 6 more weeks to rehab your knee and make sure you're up to 100%. I think he is up to 100% by now. Just going to be up to Jameson Williams to dial in and get locked into the NFL level. I think obviously what you saw out of JMO during his year in Tuscaloosa, one of the most electric players in college football, one of the most electric players maybe in the last 10 years in college football. And so, JMO, I'm hoping for you to get your head on straight. I'm not really liking the reports that I'm reading out of Lions camp about your performances, both on and off the field, fights off the field with teammates, and inconsistencies in performance with your with your production on the field, on the practice field. So that was a topic that I was leaving off the table yesterday that I kept thinking, what was the one thing I wanted to get to? It was Jameson Williams. So I appreciate everybody bearing with me as we got into that. Welcome in. Hey, Miss Julene, hello to you as well. Thank you for your comments. You guys can always leave your comments right there on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. I appreciate you, Miss Julene, and everybody else watching us, listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. So that's Jameson Williams, and that was kind of my thought. I knew I was leaving something out yesterday. I apologize that it was it literally as soon as I hit in broadcast, and that's how it always happens. As soon as I hit in broadcast, I was like, oh, you should have talked about Jameson Williams. That was the topic that you were scrambling for, looking for at the end of the show that you never ended up finding. Okay, so let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We encourage you to read us at BamaCentral.com. You got all kinds of Alabama news. It is the Sports Illustrated home for your Alabama Crimson Tide. And let's talk about what's next for me. I want to talk about the scholarship count. I want to talk about scholarship count. Yeah, you're exactly right, Julian. I'm a little scatterbrained, all over the place. Let's talk about scholarship count real quick. Alabama, we talked about it yesterday. Alabama is going into fall camp on Thursday. Players report on Wednesday. And if you look through RollTide.com, as you do from time to time, you look through RollTide.com and you think about the scholarship limitations. You guys are all smart Alabama fans and college football fans. You guys know the scholarship limitation, 85 scholarships is your maximum. And as I count, and other reporters have counted in the last couple of days, go through RollTide.com and count the scholarship athletes, and I come up with a number that is a little dangerous. I come up with 88. I come up with 88 when I'm reading the scholarship count, and so I wonder, one, if I am dumb and have miscounted 3 players as scholarship players who are really walk-ons or are not full scholarship or receiving scholarship from other entities. Perhaps, maybe. You've got 2 candidates off the top of my head that could be who could be. I've got two candidates off the top of my head that could be categorized as alternate scholarship. Look, you think I counted Connor Talty, one of the incoming freshmen, the freshman kicker out of Chicago. Look, we all know that scholarships for kickers are not often granted, not often given out. I know that our man Will Reichert is on full scholarship. So who is Connor Talty on a full scholarship? That becomes a question for me. And then I think about Dylan Lonergan. I think about Dylan Lonergan and his baseball ties, his ties to the Alabama baseball program. And I wonder how much of a scholarship he is on. If he's on a football scholarship, he's on a football full scholarship, or if he's on a baseball half scholarship, or something of the source. Look, the fact of the matter is, I don't know. You don't know. You look through RollTide.com and you can see the roster for 2023. It was updated early July as they were getting ready for SEC Media Days. And I'm not sure when the deadline is, but it's got to be before September 2nd when Alabama kicks off against MTSU. Whenever the deadline is, Alabama's got to get under the 85 scholarship limit, 85 or under, 85 or fewer. And so what that means, what does that mean? That means 3 guys are either going to have to forego scholarships or are going to have to transfer out or have to do something else. Let's be creative, something else. Whether they go on walk-on status and earn a lot of NIL money, whether a booster foots them as preferred walk-ons that they're getting NIL money as secondary avenues to mitigate scholarship losses. No matter what it is, Alabama football over the next couple of weeks is going to see roster changes over at least by 3. Look, Nick Saban's no cheater. You can get obviously the roster is set at the moment. But you go through, and maybe I miscounted. Absolutely, maybe I miscounted. But I'm also leaning on other reporters who have made the same observations. My man Tony Tsoukalis at Tide Illustrated wrote about that yesterday. Wrote about solutions for let's see what Tony said. Tony Tsoukalis. Let's see what he wrote yesterday, just so we can. Let's see. Right here. My man's. That's the wrong page. Tide Illustrated. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a fail. That's an ultimate fail. Here we go. That's what I wanted. Tony Tsoukalis writes yesterday about Alabama's over scholarshiped situation. As you look through, let's see, what was his conclusion? It's just practice. This is really terrible radio. This is really terrible production right here. I guess, did he delete it? He might have deleted it. Anyways, the case may be, and the case stands, that Alabama looks to be 3 scholarships over the 85 scholarship limit, and you're going to have to either see 3 guys transfer out, 3 guys go to maybe JUCO rank, 3 guys gray shirt, 3 guys go on walk-on status, and it takes us back to our conversation yesterday with the quarterbacks. It takes us back to our conversation with Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner, and Jalen Milroe. Obviously, you want to know who the starting quarterback is going to be as soon as possible. as soon as possible for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban talked to all at SEC Media Days. The cake will take as long as it takes to bake. You cannot pull it out early, or it'll be mushy. You cannot leave it in too long, or it's gonna get dried out. And so, will one of those quarterbacks, will it be Milroe, Simpson, or Buckner? Will one of those quarterbacks be the candidate to get Alabama under the 85 scholarship limit? Will you see one of those three guys transfer out before the start of the season? If you do, there's one of your positions. It's really look. I am not Nick Saban, so I don't know who's working hard, the hardest, and who's preparing the best. But you think about it. Alabama's recruited these classes year in and year out, and now you're 3 scholarships over, and Nick Saban's got to basically tell 3 of his children, I have a huge hard time with this. 3 of his children, hey, you're not good enough, or you got to transfer out, or you've got to go on walk-on status. You've got to go on walk-on status, and so excuse me for that cough. You got to go on walk-on status. I would have a huge hard time with that. I would have a huge problem with, I've gotten to know these kids, and now I'm having it. Now that's why Nick Saban's getting paid the big bucks, and I'm sitting over here just watching. Absolutely, but it'd be a huge challenge for me to look at the scholarships. Hey, we're 3 weeks away from the start of the season, and to decide or determine 3 guys that have to leave. Hopefully, ideally, you can put them on some sort of a NIL-based scholarship or gray shirt them for academic purposes, or you never know. You never know if somebody's going to come into the season and be medically redshirted. You never know. But you look at the scholarships right now, you look at what's going on RollTide.com right now, and you do see Alabama football is 3 scholarships, 3 positions over the current limit. And that makes me, as a fan of Alabama, or as a follower of Alabama, somebody who kind of gets to know these kids and gets to know these players, makes me a little upset on their behalf. Now, Nick Saban's going to manage and mitigate and work through that as best that he can, and he's going to handle that very well, obviously. But it's going to be very interesting to me to see over the next couple of weeks, the next 3 weeks, who Nick Saban or who the Alabama football program chews up and spits out. Is that a mean way to say it? Yes, but that's really what's kind of going on right there. Look, you transfer out of Alabama, you're going to be highly coveted. You can see that over the last 3-4 years. Almost everybody who's transferred out of Alabama has been picked up pretty quickly by other schools. So, whoever the 3 guys are will likely land on their feet. But just kind of cruddy part about football, kind of a cruddy part about today's college football environment, in today's NIL, the highly competitive oversighting, the recruiting aspect, just kind of not so fun aspect of college football as we head into fall camp. I want to be excited about this team. I want to fall in love with this team. I want to know everything about them. And, as you learn everything about them, you're going to know that not everybody's going to make it. Not everybody is going to make it. And so Nick Saban probably faced with a hard decision in the next couple of weeks, trying to get under the 85 scholarship limit. So we'll see how Nick Saban does that. We'll see how he mitigates that and how he goes through that. Remember, camp is opening on Thursday. Nick's Kids Luncheon tomorrow. We'll talk to Coach Saban. He'll give us 8 minutes of his time, getting excited for the new season, and then we will be all into season mode. You can follow BamaCentral.com. Follow Austin Hannon, Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, obviously Chris Walsh. Everybody will be covering Alabama football like white on rice right there all season long on BamaCentral.com. Let's keep this bad boy rolling. Let's keep this Tuesday going. I appreciate everybody watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can jump in on the comments section, leave me a comment, question, query, or complaint. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. And on Amazon. Tell a friend about the program, about the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Anybody who loves Alabama or loves college sports in general might like the program. I appreciate anybody and everybody spreading the love. Let's go into next topic. The topic over the weekend that I could have got into yesterday. Let's talk about Taulia Tagovailoa. Taulia Tagovailoa over the weekend, it gets reported, or he tells a reporter for The Athletic, that he was offered $1.5 million to transfer to an SEC program this coming season. Obviously, Taulia Tagovailoa is still in Maryland. He never did transfer. He didn't transfer back to an SEC program. So we're not gonna know for sure who was behind the obviously tampering, because Taulia was not in the transfer portal, but clearly tampering from an SEC school, an unnamed SEC school. And if you look about the scuttlebutt, the smoke that's kind of gone around the SEC, let's talk about the teams that brought in transfer quarterbacks. Ole Miss brought in a transfer quarterback. Florida brought in a transfer quarterback. You had who else brought in transfer quarterbacks? Kentucky brought in a transfer quarterback. Auburn brought in a transfer quarterback. You have several schools that brought in transfer quarterbacks. And anything about who's got the money to put up a $1.5 million, who was desperate enough to have a quarterback come in and transfer in to maybe improve the state of their program. I think it's very obvious who it was. I think it's very, very, very obvious that one Hugh Freeze was, and the Auburn Tigers, Mr. Yellowwood, was likely behind. Now, I say likely as we don't have the proof, and I don't really want to, definitively say it, but likely behind the offer to Taulia Tagovailoa to transfer for $1.5 million. $1.5 million. First off, is Taulia worth $1.5 million? I guess you're only worth what somebody is willing to pay you. And if you are getting offered $1.5 million, then you are worth that. So Taulia, congratulations. You are worth a pretty penny. I hope that you're making good money over at Maryland. I hope the Terrapins are taking care of you. Look, I don't expect. I'll be surprised if the Maryland Terrapins are putting up $1.5 million for your season this year. But hopefully, ideally, you are still getting compensated at a very fine rate. Because if you're turning down $1.5 million, I'm hopeful that you are making significant money elsewhere, and or feeling very, very appreciated in other manners, whether that be amenities, whatever the case may be. It doesn't always have to be monetary, but I hope Taulia is feeling very appreciated over there at Maryland. Look, you go through and Lane Kiffin clowns on social media about the article. It scratches Ole Miss off the table. I think Florida is probably your only other. You're probably only other candidate. Florida and Auburn. I think Florida is very desperate to start winning very, very soon, and I think they saw losing Anthony Richardson as a huge problem. Now, they're probably going to be better off this year. I think it's Graham Mertz that they went out and got at Florida. And so, look, Florida and Auburn are my two picks for who offer Taulia Tagovailoa big money. And Auburn, goodness gracious, just showing how desperate you are to compete with Alabama. Do you think Taulia Tagovailoa would have been the ticket to compete down on the Plains? What's up, Mr. CJ Watson? Thanks so much for watching today. CJ Watson, we're talking Taulia Tagovailoa. You think that it was Auburn that offered him the $1.5 million? I'm down to between Auburn and Florida as my two picks, and really the desperation of Hugh Freeze leads me to believe that it was Auburn's. It was Yellowwood backing the money, Tim Cook backing the money, trying to get Taulia transferring from Maryland to the Auburn Tigers. Now, look, they missed out on Taulia. And so instead they transfer they pivot to Peyton Thorne, Auburn quarterback. Peyton Thorne, Michigan State quarterback, now Auburn quarterback. So look, you bring in Peyton Thorne. I wonder, what did you pay Peyton Thorne to come in? And I don't have an issue, again, going back to everything that I've probably already said. I don't have an issue with playing players. I don't have an issue with NIL being used as incentives. The problem, I fall under the Trent Dilfer umbrella. Trent Dilfer says, hey, if you jump in the transfer portal, go get your money. If you jump in the transfer portal, go make the best deals for yourself. Go maximize your value. But Trent Dilfer up there at UAB was very vocal during the most recent media days and saying, look, if you're not in the transfer portal, don't talk to my players. Don't talk to my players trying to convince them to jump in the transfer portal to earn money. Look, if I am at Alabama and I'm satisfied even if I'm a third-string offensive tackle, if I'm a third-string cornerback, if I'm a fourth-string linebacker. Look, if I'm satisfied at Alabama working hard, getting my degree, being a part of the Crimson Tide, don't come to me and say, hey, Joe, I'll give you $700,000, I'll give you $30,000, I'll give you whatever the case may be money-wise to transfer to Arkansas Tech State University, some made-up school. Like, don't tamper with people who are happily on the roster. Now, look, if I'm upset, if I'm the fourth-string offensive tackle, offensive lineman, fourth-string linebacker, and I don't feel like I'm getting a fair shake, or I feel like I could find some playing time elsewhere, or whatever the case may be, I'm unhappy. And I decide to go into the transfer portal on my own with my parents. I'm probably talking to my parents, talking to the high school coaches. Hey, I want to transfer. If I decide that on my own volition, then of course come give me incentives. Come offer me $100 million. Come offer me $1.5 million. Sure, great. I'm wide open for business. Once I jump into the transfer portal, I am in business. But if I'm not in the transfer portal, if I'm at Maryland, like Taulia Tagovailoa, if I'm getting ready to lead the Terrapins, trying to support Mike Locksley, trying to give Maryland football, a successful season. Let's see, under Taulia, Maryland football record. I mean, how did they do last year? They were okay last year, weren't they? But they weren't amazing. Let's see, they were handy dandy internet. Yeah, they were 8-5 last year. 8-5, and they won the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So they were okay. They're good. They were 7-6 the year before. They're clearly building something under Mike Locksley. Clearly. Look, Locks goes 3-9. Then he goes 2-3, COVID year. Then he goes 7-6, 8-5. Locks is clearly building something in Maryland. And of course, Taulia is valuable, and you'd want him to play for your own program if you had quarterback problems. But Taulia never jumped in the portal, and that's the problem. That's the issue. Don't call me if I'm not in the portal. If you want to call me and say, "Hey, man, I like your game. You're doing real good. Have a good day." Whatever the case may be. But I got a real problem with offering, "Hey, man, if you jump in the portal, I'll give you $1.5 million to come play quarterback down on the Plains." I have a real problem with that. Look, I have no issue with the kids jumping in the portal and saying, "Hey, Auburn's offering me $900,000. Will you offer me $1 million? Texas offering me $1 million. USC, will you offer me $1.3 million?" I got no problem with that. That is exactly what Jordan Addison, the receiver from Pittsburgh who transferred to USC last season, that's exactly what he did. Jordan Addison wins the Biletnikoff Award as the best receiver in the country, wins the Biletnikoff Award as the best receiver in the country, and says, "You know what? I'm here at Pitt. I could probably make a lot more money somewhere else. So I'm jumping in the transfer portal." You all remember that. Jordan Addison last year, shopping between Alabama, USC, and Texas was his three schools that I firmly believe he was leveraging boosters and NIL guys and trying to get the best money package that he could. I got no problem with that. He jumps in the transfer portal. He puts himself into business. The problem is, it makes me sick. It makes me upset. It drives me up the wall. Look, here we go. C.J. Watson was the Florida coach at Bama while Taulia Tagovailoa was at Bama. He may have offered knowing what he'd get. No, but Billy Napier was at Louisiana. Billy Napier was at Louisiana Lafayette or University of Louisiana. They don't want to be called that anymore, wasn't he? Yeah, he was only at Alabama from 13 to 16. So yes, CJ. Well, he was part of the staff that recruited Taulia. Yes, so that's a good point. CJ, he was part of the staff that recruited Taulia, but he was already moved on to Louisiana Raging Cajuns by the time Taulia was on campus. So you're right. Yeah, that's why I think it's probably Florida and or Auburn who made this offer. Both universities going out to Big Ten schools. Yeah, no. Graham Mertz, NC State is ACC. Going out and getting transfer quarterbacks. They would have crossed in recruiting. Absolutely, CJ. They would have crossed in recruiting, and obviously you have in recruiting you make relationships with families with the Tagovailoas for sure. But I think you put those two together. I have a huge problem with trying to recruit kids off rosters. Like, I get it. College coaches, you got to make your money. Wins and losses, it comes down to wins and losses are basically all it comes down to. But that's nefarious. That's not good. That's skeezy to be recruiting players off other teams' rosters. Now, look, if I want to go in the transfer portal, great, leverage me. Use all my money, or everybody offer me money to come to your school. That's awesome. All about that. But if I'm happily at Alabama, at Maryland, at anywhere, at random school X, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Let me work on my own NIL money here at the Capstone or there at College Park, College Station, College Park, Maryland. I think that that's a huge issue. And so to go into circling back to Trent Dilfer real quickly, Trent Dilfer says, okay, I have IP addresses and emails, and I'm going to let it out. I'm going to let players know, or I'm going to let it out that, who's tampering with my team. Do it. Do it. Do it, please. And look, I say that knowing full well there's a chance. There's a better than 10%, better than 20% chance that Jalen Key was tampered with here at the Capstone. Now, do I know that? No, I don't. No, I don't. But let's just be smart. Let's just put two and two together. Jalen Key jumps in the portal and transfers to Alabama right away. And maybe he would have transferred anyways, maybe not. There's a chance that Jalen Key was tampered with, and that Nick Saban might be on Trent Dilfer's list. Trent Dilfer needs to put his money where his mouth is. He says, "Oh, I don't have to play the good old boy game because I come from a different background. Obviously, former player." Has a lot of money already as a player, high school coach. He's operating under different expectations here at UAB. Name names, Trent Dilfer. If coaches are tampering with your roster, name names. Because these coaches over the last couple of months have all insinuated. Pat Narduzzi at Pittsburgh, remember, during the Jordan Addison case, we just talked about it. Oh, you're recruiting my roster. You're tampering. Name names. I'm sorry, even if it implicates Nick Saban, even if it implicates people that I like, it doesn't matter. Name names. Say, oh, Coach Johnny X, Coach Billy Y, Coach Steven Z. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to speculate, but name names. If you wanted to stop, you say you have IP addresses, and, obviously, Lane Kiffin, you look at Lane Kiffin, his reaction to the Taulia Tagovailoa story, the $1.5 million. He basically quote tweets it with with a snarky emoji, essentially throwing shade at someone in the SEC, whether it be Auburn or Florida. I think it is Auburn, and I think he knew exactly what was happening. I think most of these coaches know exactly that, Hugh Freeze called Taulia, offered him $1.5 million. Wonder if he's going to take it or not. So how much money did Peyton Thorne get to transfer out of Michigan State? Did he get $500K? Did he get $1 million? The Auburn boosters, the Auburn players, so desperate to get in the game. And I think you see the danger with Hugh Freeze and the Auburn boosters, the Auburn powers that be. Look, the Auburn powers that be were not behind Brian Harsin. Not one bit. Not one bit. And a lot of it was because Brian Harsin would not play the game, would not, do the booster thing, wouldn't do the good old boy coach thing, go into, the Tiger Club and going to shake hands and kissing babies. He wanted to just coach football. He didn't even want to recruit, which that was a huge problem. But he didn't get along with the powers that be. And so therefore, the Auburn recruiting was pretty abysmal over the 2 years under Brian Harsin. And Hugh Freeze trying to rectify that, trying to revive that. I think you're seeing a bit of the power of the family when they're all behind each other, when they're all aligned. Do I worry that Hugh Freeze got DeMarcus Riddick and got Perry Thompson over the weekend? No, not really. I just think it's a sign of, okay, that is the capabilities that Auburn has. That is really what they can do when they're all aligned, moving in the same direction. And so while they didn't get Taulia Tagovailoa for $1.5 million, I think it shows exactly how much investment is behind Hugh Freeze and behind the Auburn Tigers program right now. And as Alabama fans, as Alabama supporters, you got to be worried about that. You got to be wondering about that. You got to be really, really dialed into that, because I think that over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, Hugh Freeze is probably going to be building a monster down there on the Plains, and you're going to see really a hand. Like the SEC is only just going to be better with Freeze. I don't know that stinks. He is a skeezy guy, in my opinion. Every time I hear him talk, I hear Southern Baptist mega church preacher. And look, if you're going to a mega church, that's fine. You get to know the Lord as best you can in your own way. But I think that he just gives me the creeps. He gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies. And so Hugh Freeze, I think Alabama fans, I think real Georgia fans, all the Georgia fans who are feeling real comfortable about owning the SEC, I think you're about to have another player in town. Alabama's coming for that crown still. But I think Auburn is going to be relevant sooner rather than later with the Auburn boosters backing Mr. Hugh Freeze. All right, let's keep this thing rolling. Let's keep this thing rolling with one more topic, at least for the day. I want to show you a short video. And if you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, or on Amazon, then you can listen to the audio. The audio is really the most important part. But this is Perry Thompson yesterday. Look, we talked a lot about Perry Thompson's flip. We talked a lot about, what went into it and how Alabama's going to pivot, this, that, or the other. Well, Perry Thompson, Foley High Schooler, was up at the Mobile Media Days, really, for their high school football. You had the who's who Mobile of the South Alabama area, kind of doing a football media days event. Baldwin County Media Day at Bryant Bank. So he was at the Baldwin County Media Days and asked about, one, how long you knew that you were going to flip to Auburn, and two, why? What went into your flip to Auburn? So listen, this is Perry Thompson, and this is what he had to say about flipping his commitment to Auburn.
I'd say probably like a month ago, I looked at Nick Saban and Hugh Freeze. Nick Saban, good coach, all the stuff he had through college football and all that, but I know he specialized in DBs, and my main position is receiver, and I know Hugh Freeze got a background of developing receivers to the higher level, and just that, how you get receivers to their highest point and stuff.
You've been, for a while now, people have been asking you, where are you going to go? Do you feel 100% now? I mean, do you feel at ease, ready to go in?
Yes, sir. I feel at home. Like, I even on campus the other night, I went around campus with a scooter, riding around, getting that home feeling.
I have that legacy question that I asked coaches about your family.
Okay, there's Perry Thompson at Baldwin County Media Day. And that video is courtesy at Ben Thomas Preps on the social media machine. We appreciate Ben Thomas. Ben Thomas is a high school sports reporter for the Alabama Media Group. You read him a lot on AL.com. That was at Ben Thomas for his video, and I appreciate him getting that video. And you probably saw it yesterday if you live on social media like I do. You probably saw it yesterday. And look, Perry. First, you can go to any school you want to. You can go to any school that you want to. I don't care. You go to whatever school makes you feel happy. Go to whatever school makes you excited to be there. And the second part of your answer, I felt home. Go to whatever school makes you feel at home. But don't use erroneous information. Don't use blatantly false lies to explain your decision. Look, he says, okay, Nick Saban is his specialty is defensive backs. Fair, true. And Hugh Freeze, his specialty is offensive players. Fair, again, true. And then he says, Hugh Freeze has a better track record of producing wide receivers than Nick Saban. And okay, I know that Nick Saban is not directly coaching these receivers in every fundamental of the game, in every part of the game. But it's still the Nick Saban-led team, and it's still Nick Saban overseeing the wide receivers coaches that he's had over the course of time. One of those wide receivers coaches that we just talked about, Billy Napier. Like, he's had many wide receivers coaches over the course of his tenure. He had Al Grove. He had Billy Napier. We're rocking with Holman Wiggins right now. Like, we have had a handful of wide receiver coaches. No problem with that. Yeah, Josh Gaddis as well. No problem with that. That's the nature of the beast. So yes, Nick Saban's not directly developing Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones. Like, I'm sorry. Okay, I get it if you want to point at some of the more mediocre Alabama wide receivers. But the fact of the matter is, over 15, 16, 17 years, look, I guess you're not going to give credit you're not going to give DJ Hall to Nick Saban because, Nick only had him for the 1 year. I think his final year. But really, other than after DJ Hall, you have an elite group of wide receivers. Not just good, but if I took, you take the best of the best, the 5 best receivers from DJ Hall on, and you've got, all right, Julio Jones, first ballot NFL Hall of Famer. Amari Cooper, he's on track. He's having a great NFL career. Will he be a Hall of Famer? I don't quite think so. Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy winner. Jerry Jeudy, first-round draft pick. Henry Ruggs, first-round draft pick. Jalen Waddle, first-round draft. I mean, the history speaks for himself. Excuse me. The history speaks for itself. And so for Alabama, for Perry Thompson, look, again, you can go wherever you want. You can go wherever makes you happy. And I don't even care if money was involved. I don't care if NIL is involved. I don't care what's involved. But don't be a fool. And really, yesterday, you opened your mouth and you showed yourself a fool. Now, Hugh Freeze, you've got a couple wide receivers that you put into the league. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. You put in a couple wide receivers into the league. You have. Great. Good job. But not nearly to say, oh, he has a better track record of putting receivers into the league and developing wide receivers. I don't know that that's true. I think that's inherently false. False. CJ Watson, rumor has it he liked the idea of Taulia throwing to him. Kidding. There, I've touched both Auburn and, yes, offering Taulia. Look, Perry, just don't lie, man. Or if someone is telling you this, if Hugh Freeze is telling you I have a better track record of developing wide receivers than Nick Saban, then somebody's mama, somebody's daddy has got to pull him aside and say, you know what, son? Hugh Freeze is just spinning you a bunch of hooey to get you on his side. And look, I don't care what they say in recruiting, but let's operate in truth. Let's operate in truth. And I think that Perry Thompson showed himself a little bit of a fool yesterday with that statement. Go with the second part. Do the DeMarcus Riddick line, like he said last week. DeMarcus Riddick, after his recruitment, said, "I felt like home." Perfect. No one can dispute how you feel. No one can dispute what campus makes you feel good, what environment makes you feel right. No one can dispute that. That's your own decision. But we can dispute who's developed wide receivers at a higher rate. Let's not get into lies. Let's not get into falsehoods here. Let's not do that. Perry Thompson, enjoy your time at Auburn. Go make your money. Let's see if you can get into the league. But let's at least operate in truth. All right, I got one more topic for you guys today, and it's football related, sort of, but it's a little bit just Bryce Young related because I love him. Bryce Young was at Carolina Panthers camp and came up to the podium today. And this video clip came out. I should have downloaded it, but it ran late on my promo. Bryce Young admits to the Carolina Panthers media contingent that in his first bit of college, his first time here in Tuscaloosa during the COVID year, if you ordered DoorDash during COVID-19, there's a better than 1% chance that Bryce Young was your delivery driver. How crazy is that? Look, you guys, if you're not familiar with DoorDash or Uber Eats, they're both the same sort of concept. You order food on an app, somebody goes and picks it up and delivers it right to your door. Easy peasy. Bryce Young admitting to the Carolina Panthers media contingent after practice today that when he first got to campus, after learning the playbook, he said, it was before NIL, and I did DoorDash. And he said, He only took orders that were drop off at the door, and he always wore a mask and a hoodie, so nobody really recognized him. And so, how crazy is that? That if you'd ordered DoorDash in that 2020 year, better than 1% chance that Bryce Young dropped off your food. So we've all, everyone who's participated in DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats, we can all say, oh, maybe I did receive an order from a Heisman Trophy winner. I was on the receiving end of a Bryce Young delivery. I think that's kind of a funny concept and a nice, cute way to end the show for today. I'm going to wrap it up right here. I'm going to go, continue to have hopefully a good week. Hopefully you guys are having a good week. I appreciate everybody watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon, and on Spotify, of course. Listen to us. Be following us on BamaCentral. You can look. I'm catching up with Cannon Claycomb on Thursday. That'll be the Thursday program, unless we pivots again, in which case we will adjust. That's no problem. Cannon Claycomb, the number 14 ranked golfer going into the season this year, senior most leader of the Alabama Crimson Tide team this year. We'll ask him about Nick Dunlap. We'll ask him about the 2 Alabama wins this past week. We'll ask him about his season going forward and just all kinds of golf talk on Thursday with Cannon Claycomb. I'm still trying to catch up with Mr. Casey Poe. I sent a million messages out to different guests yesterday. Get a whole lot of responses, so we'll just circle on back, and that's okay. We'll continue to have as fun a week as possible. Remember, tomorrow, Nick's Kids Luncheon. You'll be able to see it on the Twitter machines from BamaCentral, on Joe Gaither 6 at Austin Hannon SI. All the Twitter machines for BamaCentral will be rocking and rolling tomorrow at the Nick's Kids Luncheon, and then we will open up practice on Thursday. Oh my gosh, practice on Thursday. I'm sure the guys will get pads on Friday and or Saturday. Got to get a couple days of acclimation in there before they throw on full pads and go full bore. Really excited to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. We talked about Jameson Williams today. We talked about Taulia Tagovailoa. We talked about Perry Thompson, and we talked about the Alabama scholarship count. Alabama currently sits 3 scholarships over on the 85 scholarship limit. How will Nick Saban mitigate and manage his roster over the next 3 weeks? Yeah, we talk about practice, CJ. We'll be there before you know it. And so we'll do it all over again tomorrow, right here on the Joe Gaither Show. Follow me at Joe Gaither 6. Send me your comments, your questions, queries, and complaints. Tell a friend about the program. Follow my boss at Writing Walsh on the Twitter machine. Subscribe to BamaCentral.com for our newsletter so you don't miss anything at all. All things Alabama related with the Sports Illustrated home for the Crimson Tide right there on BamaCentral.com. So for you, the listener, go have a day, go have a Tuesday. And for me, I am Joe Gaither. This was another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.